So since there's no CV inputs on the bandpass filter model 194F, kind of the way to show what it sounds like is to throw different sounds at it and see how it processes it. So with this patch, I'm also kind of going to make this be like a little addendum patch to going all the way back to episode 5, I believe, where we looked at the 281 and 292 pairing. And we looked at the quadrature mode, and we kind of set that up and talked through it in an interesting way, but not actually the way that I think it was truly intended. So when it was designed, back in the 70s, I believe its intention when you put the A and B or C and D pairs of function generators in quadrature mode, the idea was to then feed those control voltage outputs into the X and Y inputs on, say, the 227 mixer. And the full name escapes me. But basically, so you could do quad panning with that. And with the new mixer, the 227E, there's a swirl mode, which basically you hit the swirl button, depending on what you have the value set at on the knobs for each channel, it will kind of swirl around all four speakers. So they didn't have that with the old one. It just had X and Y inputs and one knob to kind of direct which speaker, or you can kind of sweep it and the sound would follow its outputs to those speakers. So all this to say, you could get a swirl in quadrature mode. So by linking the two function generators together and actually patching B's pulse output back into the pulse input of A, what's going to happen is that A is going to go through its attack phase, and once it reaches its full attack, that's going to trigger, internally trigger B to start its attack phase. So while B then starts to attack, A holds, kind of sustains at its full 10 volts, and then once B gets to its full attack phase, A's decay is going to then start, and it's going to release the control voltage and go down. So if you kind of think of this, if A is going into the Y input on this XY input for the quadrature panning, and the way that one module is set up is that when it would take CV, you'd have to have it in the lower left hand speaker is where kind of the knob needed to be set. So A would go into the Y input, which would then push it up into the forward left speaker, and it would hold there. Then B is going to trigger its attack, and that's going to push the sound over into the front right speaker. Then as A decays, that's going to move it down into the rear right speaker, and then when B decays, it's going to go back to where it started, completing that swirl. So I'm going to kind of, unfortunately we're just in a stereo space right now, but I'm going to show you two bands that are going through this right now. So this is the 200 to 900 and the 900 to 4000. So the kind of the two mid bands, which cover most of the frequency that you're gonna hear, and I have these split in stereo. So right now you're gonna hear a function generator ramp up, now just sustained. So now you can hear B start up, and A just decayed, and now B decayed. So now what I kind of figured out, I guess the way to, you kind of jumpstart this patch. You don't have the function generator self-cycling. You just kind of want to self-cycle it once, like you push up to start it to self-cycle, and then you press it back down. And I'm talking about the the switch on each of the function generators to kind of get that loop going. And then, like I said before, I have B's pulse output back into A. So it kind of is still self-cycling, but it gets wonky if you have one or both going at the same time. But what I have found, if I then I can kind of get this cascading effect if I use all 4 function generators. So I have also C and D of the 281 set to quadrature, and I'm going to put C's pulse output back into A's pulse input. And so that's going to do is, and then I'm going to put, sorry, I lost my patch cable. Okay, so I got my patch cable back, and so yeah, like I was saying before, I've got C's pulse output going into A's pulse input, and then A's pulse output into C's pulse input. So they're kind of cross pulsing each other. And if I do the same thing, it's going to do the same kind of swirl effect, but it's cascading into each channel. So A attacks, and once it hits its kind of sustain point, B starts up, and then A will decay once B reaches its attack, and after it finishes its full decay, it's then going to jumpstart C. And then if you kind of have all the knobs set in the same position on each of the 4 channels, it's going to keep going. So then basically once B starts its decay period, once it's A is done with its decay period, that's going to start up C, and B will start decaying at that point, and then it kind of goes down into D, and then it will cycle back up. So I have all these attached to the 4 bands on the bandpass filter, and I will bring those in, and what I'm going to kind of do is maybe kind of fan out the outputs. So my lowest one will be all the way to the left. 200 to 900 is going to be kind of somewhat to the left. 900 to 4,000 somewhat to the right. And above 4,000 all the way to the right. So instead of each one going through its cycle and then having like a pulse going into the next function generator, which is something that we did back in that episode 5, it's kind of cool to have these things overlapping and internally triggering each other. What I'll do is I'll take a pulse output on C. So when it finishes its pulse, it's going to go to random on the 266, and that's going to change a bunch of settings on the 259 oscillator. So we'll get kind of every pass of this, it's going to change the sound a bit. These different randoms are going to pitch for both the modulation and the principal oscillator, and then also going into the timbre section and the harmonic section, as well as the mod index. What I could also do is kind of, I could have these kind of bounce ping pong left to right, so I can keep the lowest one on the left, set the 200 to 900 all the way to the right, then 900, 4,000 back to the left, which you're hearing now, and then above 4,000 on the right. So yeah, kind of fun to crack this swirl feature that comes along with the Quadrature mode on the 281. And this bandpass filter sounds pretty sweet.